Okay, team, we're at 2:01. We're at 61 participants. Do you want to give it another couple of minutes? People seem to be logging in right now.
Yeah, why don't we wait 3 minutes, okay?
So then you've all heard we're going to wait 3 minutes. If you are not muted on the screen, please take this opportunity to mute yourself on your phone. Some of them, I guess, would identify me as the producer for this event. John, as soon as you're recording, we can get started, and I'll turn it over to Casey. John, if you just confirm that we're recording, then we can turn it over to Casey. Can any of my team hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. And so,
I
John,
think so.
Good. So, John, we're just waiting on you.
Is John here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Are we recording? John Sands.
There's a virtual approximation of John Sands moving a mouse and sharing a desktop.
Recording.
Okay.
Terrific. Thank
Great.
you.
Welcome, everybody. This is Casey O'Brien. I'm the Director and Principal Investigator of the National CyberWatch Center. I want to welcome all 65 of you to the first in what's going to become a monthly series, what we're calling the National CyberWatch Center Webinar Series. The first topic on the Center of Academic Excellence program, and specifically looking at how do I become part of this program, or how do I get this designation, how do I renew, et cetera, et cetera. We've convened a panel of subject matter experts, folks that have worked in this area for years, folks that have helped with onboarding. We have a representative from NSA. So without further ado, if we could go to the next slide. And so a couple things before I talk about future webinars, just some points of order, and perhaps whoever's driving from the CASIA side, feel free to jump in. So a couple things just in terms of protocol for the WebEx itself. One is we're going to be recording this session and all future webinar sessions and making those available via the National CyberWatch Center and CASIA, Center for System Security and Information Assurance websites. So you can refer back to it. If you're participating via WebEx and you have a question as we progress throughout the panel and the discussion, there's a couple ways in which you can go about making sure you are heard. And one is you can raise your hand. So in the top middle of your screen is a drop-down menu, and there is a participants icon, and there's a chat icon. You may want to open both of those up. So the chat icon is one way to go ahead and post a question, and you can make sure that you send that to the host, presenter, panelist, or you can raise your hand in the participants feature of WebEx. If you're calling in, that is, you're not using WebEx via computer to participate, then we'll provide some time at the end for question and answer. So just some just some protocol stuff around the WebEx itself. So what you should see on your screen for those that are participating via WebEx is a slide that says future webinars. And like I said, we plan to hold one every month. They will be the last Friday of the month, and they will all start at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time except for this one. You can see some of the topics we're looking to cover in these webinars. So what's going on with national curriculum, perhaps research issues that relates to classroom innovation, experimentation, security clearances, National Cyber League for the classroom, building enrollments in your programs, the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework. And we put nice framework in there just so it would fit, but technically it's referred to as the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework. It's a draft version of 2.0 out there. What's going on with that? How does it relate to this whole discussion around the Center of Academic Excellence? What are essential skills that the industry is looking for? So we're going to run these through December of 2014. We'll take a break in June and July when most folks are traveling, and we're open to suggestions on topics for the 2015 series. And by all accounts, it looks like this is absolutely a very hot topic. I'm showing 65 attendees. So next slide, please. By the way, there is a shortened URL on that previous slide in the bottom right that links to a registration site. So basically, just some information. I covered a little bit about if you have a question, let others know about this, accessing handouts. How are we going to handle that, Portia?
We have sent out by email to every person who registered. We sent out all of the program handouts, the official ones from the NSA. So if you have not received it, put your hand up in the chat now, and I'll make sure that, or shoot me a chat, and I will be glad to make sure you get this involved.
Okay. And technical problems, I'm not sure who's driving the slides from the Cassia side. Do we have an email and or number for folks if they're having technical problems?
How about if they just refer to me in chat?
Okay. If you're having problems getting into WebEx and you're on the call, you can send an email to C.O'Brien, C-O-B-R-I-E-N, at cyberwatchcenter.org. Next slide, please. Thank you. So these webinar series are set up in a panel format, so we convened a panel of subject matter experts. I'll be the facilitator. Next slide. And before Denisha and everybody else on the panel introduces themselves, it would be helpful for folks when you're speaking to identify yourself so people can get used to a voice with a name. So without further ado, I'll let Denisha go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I am Denisha Jackson. I run the CAE 2Y program here at NSA. So if you have any questions about the program or you need further information, you can jot down that email address right there, and that'll come straight into our office. But I'll be going over everything, all the program requirements a little later on, so you will see this email address again later as well. But here's my voice.
Thank you, Denisha. Next slide, please.
I'm Mira Zdravkovic. I'm Senior Advisor for National CyberWatch Center, and I have worked with CAE 2Y from its inception.
Thanks, Dr. Z. Next slide, please. Fred?
Forgot to unmute. Hi, I'm Dr. Fred Klappenberger. I'm Fred Klappenberger. That's funny. I'm past co-principal investigator of CyberWatch. and I'm going to help with the mapping of the cables.
And just for those that perhaps don't know Fred or haven't met him, if you're using the CyberWatch Model Degree Program as your courseware, you can thank Fred, who developed that at Anne Arundel Community College, and that became one of the first approved cybersecurity programs in the country. So it's good to have you on board, Fred. Next slide, please. John Sands, is John on?
John is not on. He's having an issue with his phone. So don't get used to this voice because it's not John.
Who's that?
This is Susan Sands.
Hi, Susan. So good to have you. You have you want to talk a little bit about your experience with CAE?
I've worked with a number of institutions to help them complete the old mapping process and application process for the CAE2Y program.
Yes, a lot of experience with the onboarding and getting to school. So good to have you on board. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Well, and while we're on John's slide, and next slide, Susan, so since you introduced yourself, but I also would like to take an opportunity to provide a virtual class to John Sands and the Center for System Security and Information Assurance. It's their WebEx tool that we're using today, and I just wanted to thank them for it.
Good. Absolutely. That's the crowd cheering. Thank you. There's Susan. Great. Next slide, please. So the agenda, you can see it here. What is the CAE program? Why should I become a CAE? What are the program requirements, mapping requirements? What do I need to know? So next slide, please. Okay. Dr. Z?
No, that's Denisha.
Denisha, I'm sorry, Denisha?
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Denisha, you want to go through? Or?
Sure.
Okay, I will do, this is Vera Zdravkovic. There are three different types of CAE designations. CAE2Y, that's a for two-year colleges. CAE for four-year institutions. And CAE Research, that's for research institutions. You can see and read what the goal of the CAE program, and any and all regionally accredited two- and four-year institutions, and of course graduate level institutions can apply and are eligible. And then the mapping of courseware to the CNSS standards that used to be used in the past is no longer a requirement for the CAE. So while it still exists, it is not any longer a requirement, and you'll hear what is required now. Next slide, please. Let me tell you a little bit about the history of CAE2Y. It was initiated officially in 2010, and since then, we have now a total of 32 community colleges that became CAE2Y institutions. It is very important to mention that the CAE2Y designation is not a program designation. It is an institutional designation, and that is what makes it so much more important to especially a community college. And when you look at these 33 community colleges, remember there are 1,200 community colleges in the United States. Next slide, please. What progress have we made since the inception? As I said, there are 33 CAE2Y colleges. We have developed and established a community of CAE2Y. We publish a newsletter and we send it electronically bi-monthly. You can you see the contact information at the bottom of the slide to obtain the newsletter. And the new one will be coming in a couple of weeks, and we'll also have information, some of the same information that you're hearing today, as well as some important dates, as well as some other information. Thank you. Next slide. So those of you who are not a CAE2Y institution may want to Now, why would I become a CAE2Y? And I have had that question raised by a number of faculty. Again, remember, it's an institutional designation. Therefore, the program gains internal recognition, not only from your senior administration, presidents, VP, deans, etc., but you also get an internal recognition throughout the institution. You gain an external recognition. Typically at the colloquium in June, which is an annual conference, this is when the designations are given. There is a big to-do about it, and you receive external recognition that way, as well as in your own community. You also can get, if you go down around the circle, enhanced internal support. Once your administrators recognize the value of your program and the CAE2Y designation, they are more likely to provide you with necessary support and funding. Also, you can get, you have enhanced external support. To give you an example, Hagerstown Community College here in Maryland became a CAE2Y institution in 2010. It was one of the first 6 community colleges. Since that time, they have secured 2 NSF funding for 2 different projects, all in cybersecurity, got a new lab, got corporate support, and so forth. So it's a very good way to garner external support. And basically the next box has external funding and grant opportunities, which I just mentioned. And finally, you have an opportunity to build stronger collaboration and stronger and multiple partnerships, not only with academic institutions, but with industry and businesses in your community. Thank you. Next slide.
Okay, this is Denise, and now I'll be discussing the program requirements for getting the CAE designation. First, we'll go over these 2 terms, which is knowledge units, or you'll hear me say KUs a lot, and that's going to be a detailed list of course topics and expected outcomes that we have come up with other government and academic partners to basically outline what we think is important for the program. Focus areas also, that this is another designation that you'll be able to get in addition to your regular CAE designation. We're offering a focus area designation where you can basically say that your school is an expert in this focus area. So focus areas are basically built on a set of knowledge units. You'll see more about that a little later. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I'll be discussing the requirements needed to obtain your CAE designation. Previously, mapping at least 2 of the CNSS standards was a prerequisite to applying for the program. And as Vera said a little while ago, these are no longer required. All you'll have to do is meet these requirements that you now see on your screen. You must, however, be a regionally accredited 2-year, 4-year, or graduate level institution within the United States to apply. At the 2-year level, we also accept applications from technical schools or state or federally endorsed IA training centers. They can also get the CAE2Y designation. So let's go into the requirements for KU mapping. So knowledge in the KU mapping is also a requirement. Just a little background on that. Like I said, the KUs were developed by government and academics needs. We kind of did a country-wide tour, and we went to different areas and met with institutions, and some institutions may even be on the call that participated. And we kind of came up with these core and optional knowledge units that are required for the IOCD program. If you're a CAE2Y institution, you will be expected to basically map to the 2-year core. There are 11 2-year core KUs that you're going to be required to map to. If you are a four-year institution, a four-year plus is what we call it, you'll see in the program guidance if you got a chance to read through that. If you are a four-year institution, you would be required to map to the 11 2Y core. There also are 6 additional 4Y core KUs, and then you would have to map to 5 optional KUs. And there are about 51 optional KUs that you can choose from to map to in addition to the core knowledge units. In addition to that, you'll also have to meet the CAE program criteria requirements. Those requirements is really what was the core of the CAE program before we changed it last year or updated it last year. These 7 criteria right here is what the CAE program was prior to our little change. So first I'll talk about the program outreach and collaboration. So basically for that, we're going to be expecting you to talk about any community outreach that you do. I don't know, you might have camps in the summer, you might run workshops. At the 2I level, you might even have first responder training classes or something like that. We would be looking for you to discuss all of those things in that criteria. We would also be looking for you to discuss any articulation agreements that you might have. If you're a 2Y school, maybe you have articulation agreements with local high schools, or if you're a 4Y school, maybe you have agreements with other community colleges or other 4-year schools. So this is the place where you would list those and talk about any agreements that you have with other institutions. In terms of the student development, what we'll be looking for there is a discussion of any shared faculty or shared curriculum that you may have. Just being a part of CyberWatch, I know that they develop curriculum, so if you are using some of that, that's what you will put that information right there. We'll be looking to see, is the program bringing in any guest lecturers, any practitioners in the subjects and topics that you all are talking about. We're going to be looking to see if you sponsor any cyber competitions or if you participate in any cyber competitions. All of that will need to be listed under student development. So for IACD Center Establishment and Maintenance. So basically for that, we are looking for a formal organization that serves as a resource for your program. So it doesn't have to be a physical center. It can simply be a web presence. But we are going to be looking to make sure that you're keeping that up to date. We'll be looking for any new IA news, if there's any type of competitions coming up. We'll be looking to see if you have links to any libraries that your students have access to. We basically want this to be a portal for your program. I mean, the face of your program. So where you're keeping students up to date, where you're keeping other faculty up to date. I mean, where if you are thinking about coming to that school, people could go to this site and see everything that you have going on there. I mean, I personally think that this is an easy place to keep up with your designation. So for the next time that you need to designate, you've already put things there. You've already said, hey, my students participated in this competition. We came in 3rd place. Hey, we brought in this person to speak, because you've already posted there. This is, to me, the center is a place where you can keep record of all those things and make it easier for yourself when it's time to redesignate in 5 years later. The next one is IACD multidisciplinary efforts. So basically, this one is pretty simple. We're just looking to see if you're teaching IA across disciplines at the school, or vice versa even. So our IA modules being taught in non-IA classes, and our non-IA modules being taught in your IA classes. So that one is not many people have problems with that one. Usually HIPAA or something is being taught in, I don't know, finance or somewhere like that. So most people don't really have a hard time with that one. So the next criteria is practice of IACD at the institution level. So what we'll be looking for there is an existence of your school's security plan. We'd access, you could identify your ISSO for the institution, and any evidence that you have that shows that you do have security in place. So whether that just be a banner at the top of the screens on any of the websites that are connected to the network, it's really simple. Or if it's something where your students have to acknowledge when they are getting online, it's really simple. That one's pretty simple too, because usually all these institutions have some type of IA presence in place at the institution level. For IACD faculty, that one's pretty simple also. We're just asking that you identify the person who will be responsible for maintaining the CAE program at your institution, and then identify any additional faculty who's teaching IA, where you will be that's reflective of the courses that you put in during your knowledge unit mapping. And the final one, and this is a new one. If you're already a CAE, you'll see that this one was not there before. This is student curriculum task and recognition. So basically here, we're asking, is there an IA track that your students can take and complete to receive recognition for it? So if you have all of these things in place, if you're a CAE and you have these courses in place, is there some kind of track that your students can take and say, hey, I've completed the courses required under the CAE designation for my institutions? We just want to make sure that your students are also getting recognition in addition to the institution. So when it's time for them to apply for jobs, or when hiring managers are looking over their resume, they can have something to put there that acknowledges that they went through this path. You can go to the next slide, please. So here I'll just give you a few minutes to look over this. This is basically the core knowledge units that are required at the 2-year level, the 4-year level, and down at the bottom when you see graduate institutions, that is mostly talking about our CAE-R program, which we are not covering today, but that's our CAE and research. So, and under that CAE and research, you're not required to do the knowledge unit mapping, but that's what that graduate role is referencing. So, like I said, and on the previous slide, if you can just take a look at your 2 years, those 11 there is that's all you would be required if you are a 2-year institution to map to receive your CAE designation. If you can map to those successfully, that is all you need to show that you are covering in your curriculum. Now keep in mind, when you are mapping to these things, it does not have to be a class for each one of these topics. As long as there are modules within courses and you can see that you're covering these topics within the courses that you're teaching, that's fine. You don't have to go out and try to add more courses and have to get approvals for some things that you wouldn't necessarily be doing normally just to get this designation. And so if you take a look at the 4-year line, so for 4 years, you're going to have to map to these 6 that you see here, plus those 11 that you see above, and then you see that place right there which says 5 optional KUs. If you go to the next slide, please. This page, in addition to the next page, these are all 51 of our optional knowledge units. So you can pick any of these to map to in order to get your CAE designation at the 4-year plus level. You can go to the next slide and just let everyone take a look at the rest of the knowledge units. So we can go forward to the next slide, please. Okay, so now I'm going to talk just a little bit about optional focus areas. So in addition to getting your CAE designation, you are also able to get a focus area designation. So institutions, you're not required to apply for focus area designation. This is totally up to you. If you would like to do it, that's great. If you wouldn't and you're happy with just your CAE, that's great as well. Another point to make is that if you want to try for your CAE first and figure, well, I just don't have time to do the focus area designation right now, but I do want to get my CAE in, you can do that this year, and then next year or the year after, you can focus on just doing the focus area designation only. There's a few benefits of the focus area designation that you can see here. It basically gives you a chance to show how your CAE program is different than another CAE program at other schools. So when we go to the next slide, you'll see some of the focus area topics that you can designate in. We're basically just trying to make your schools more marketable, make it more easy in terms of new students, in terms of hiring. We're trying to help you and us identify the schools who are strong in this, and as also identify those students who are strong, who've been through these programs that have these focus areas. So when it's time for them to get jobs, like I said before, all of that is on their transcript. Now well, maybe not transcript, but they can have some type of certificate that shows this. Again, with the focus area designations, you're going to be required to show what path a student can take to complete everything, all of the courses under that focus area. And an institution, you're going to be required to meet all the KUs that's under that focus area to qualify. If you could go to the next slide, I'll explain a little more. So these are, right now we have 17 focus areas. For each of these focus areas, these are all made up of multiple KUs. So the KUs that you've seen in the previous slides, each focus area is made up of some of those. So if you're trying to get a focus area and you are a two-year institution, that might mean that now you will have to map to some four-year core, or that you're going to have to map to some optional. So this is where it gets a little tricky if you're trying to get a focus area, because now you might be mapping to things that aren't necessarily required under just the CAE designation only. You should have received a document within the attachments that was sent out that includes a focus area list. And on that document, you will see all of the knowledge units that are required under each focus area. And like I said, if you have questions about it, anything like that, you can definitely let us know and we can walk you through your questions. Next slide, please. And I think this is Fred. Fred, are you there?
Hi. Yep, I'm here now.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I think we can.
Okay. Next slide then, please. Well, we want to talk about the mapping process now and just take you through it at a very high level. As we've seen, I think the knowledge unit is really a set of topics that are related to a general subject area. So each one of these topic or knowledge units and the topics in it have to be specifically addressed either in the classroom or in the lab or by an assignment or some activity, and then students have to be tested to demonstrate their knowledge or their skill that they have achieved that. And that's defined by the learning objectives that are specified in the knowledge unit. Institutions can show their compliance to each one of these knowledge units by citing objective evidence for each component. And they can accomplish this through several possible ways, like references to formal detailed course outlines. That's a great way to do it. If you have that, text references, like you can cite your textbook, what chapter you use to cover this particular item, what page it's on, or assignments or prerequisite courses or certificates, like if you require a student in order to take a course to take a CCNA, then they would have certain prerequisite knowledge that might be assumed for that knowledge unit. while one course might satisfy a single knowledge unit, it's possible, maybe even likely, that one course will address topics in more than one knowledge unit. So when you do your mapping, you can keep that in mind. And similarly, the topics that are in one knowledge unit might span more than one course. So you might require 2 or 3 courses, might have to cite 2 or 3 courses in order to demonstrate that you cover the topics and all the topics in a single knowledge unit. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is just a general required resources overview of 3 things that are necessary to accomplish the mapping. I think they're probably intuitively obvious. You need to have the knowledge unit mapping matrix, which I think everyone probably received in the packet of attachments of the participants of this presentation today. And the specific one that you want to take a look at is titled 2014 CAE KU Mapping Matrix. That's going to be your basic Bible for identifying what the topics are and what the outcomes are. Then you need content experts, that means your faculty, who are going to be teaching these courses and who have detailed knowledge of the courses in order to help do the mapping. And then the third thing, of course, are the materials and the resources, the actual objective evidence that you need to satisfy the knowledge components. And once you have all that, then you're well on your way to doing your mapping. Let's go to the next slide.
Fred, can I just, real quick, I just want to remind folks, if you have questions and you're participating via WebEx, there's a drop-down menu towards the middle top of your screen, and there is a participants icon you can click on. When that window opens, you'll see towards the bottom left an icon of a hand. It's the first icon to the left bottom of that participants window. Go ahead and click that, and I'll be watching that, and we'll go ahead and be sure we can get your questions answered. If you're having technical difficulties, you can again email me at COBrien, C-O-B as in boy, R-I-E-N as in Nancy, at cyberwatchcenter.org. Back to you, Fred. Thank you.
Okay. So this slide is an overview again of the entire process. When we look at the mapping matrix, what one needs to do is, first of all, review that matrix, and you'll see what the topic requirements are from the knowledge unit mapping matrix template. And on the left-hand side of it, we'll see when we get to the next slide that it identifies these knowledge components, and also it identifies what the objectives are. And then we need to identify the courses that cover the topics, and that's where we use the content experts. And then you may very well wind up with some cells that you don't know exactly how to fill. And if that's the case, then you can call either the National CyberWatch Center or CASIA for some assistance. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is a very simple example of the very first knowledge unit. It's an example of the basic data analysis. It's the simplest of the knowledge unit. And as you can see, there are, if you look on the left-hand side of it, it consists of 4 mandatory topics that have to be covered. And down below those topics is the single outcome. These are listed on the left-hand side of the spreadsheet. I think you can see that. And then over on the right-hand side, we can see all these X's. In the right-hand column, that first row, starting in column D, the content experts, the faculty, populate these identifiers of the possible courses that are going to cover the topics. that are addressed in the knowledge unit. Then they complete the sections beyond column C by adding X's under the columns that, in their initial judgment at any rate, intersect with the required topics covered by the courses. And this can be a relatively brisk exercise, as the details in defining the depth of coverage can be ignored in this first pass, because that's what, when people have a little more time to do and to reflect on, they can fill in the details. And so at this point, only an informal, nominal, if you will, mapping has been done. So this is just like your round one. Then we go to the next slide. This is what we need to do in order to complete the mapping. And it's outlined there by the bullets. The width of the cells under the course columns can be expanded to accommodate references that will identify the objective evidence that's covered, that shows that the topic is covered by the course. So here is where we replace the X's with specific objective references that cite exactly where in the delivery of the course material the topics will be addressed. Detailed course outlines, as I mentioned previously, that enumerate the topic by week. That's a great source to cite as evidence. But additional sources like the text references I also mentioned in handouts and labs, and whatever other sources you might have that indicate that that topic is covered can also be used. And then finally, a spreadsheet containing all the course mappings to a particular knowledge unit can be assembled, put together into one spreadsheet, and then you can use that in order to enter this information into the CAE application website. And that's it. See how simple it is? That's the end of my part.
Next slide, please.
I think I'm back on. Just Denise again. So if you go to the next slide, please, I'll just talk to you about a few important things to know about applying. So first of all, if you are already a CAE and you need to reapply under the new designation, we are encouraging everyone to designate by 2014. And we know that this is an aggressive schedule, but we have been tasked with this, and we're hoping that you can stick to the schedule that we have provided. If you are, however, having problems, just shoot me an email and we can definitely discuss that. So if you are a TLC for a CAE, already a CAE institution, and you don't have the schedule, it should have been attached to the other documents that were emailed to you prior to this webinar. And if you have questions about that, or if you still need the schedule, just email me and I can definitely get it to you. So say, for example, if you're already a CAE and it's asking that you designate between January and March, then you would not be required or expected to submit your application until the last day of March. So it will always be at the end, the last day of the scheduled submission period, that you will be expected to have your submission entered by. If you're a new institution, you're more than welcome to apply at any time. Right now, we are not totally finished development of the KU mapping portion of our application website. We're almost finished. I actually would even say in the next week or so, you'll start seeing emails saying that that part of the application is ready to go. So you can map at any time, map or apply at any time. However, I will say, just to be knowledgeable of the fact that we have 181 institutions to designate or redesignate under this new designation, and that's by December 2014. And so those people are going to be given first priority if you are new and turning in your application. We're going to give the second priority to those institutions who were eligible to apply in January but chose to delay and to apply under the new program. So they'll have second priority review, and then we'll be reviewing new institutions as our resources permit. So even if you get your application in, I can't promise that it will be reviewed as soon as you get it in. So with that said, I encourage you to you can take your time and make sure that you explain as best as possible, that you provide any information that will help justify any of the sections of the application. As you know, take your time to do that, because I cannot promise you when your review will be actually looked at if you are a new institution. We will do it in the order that it received, but in that third level of priority. And if you could go to the next slide, please.
Hang on a second, Denisha, real quick. Looks like we have a question from Stephen Miller. I'm not sure. Can I unmute him, or Susan, can you do that? Let's see if I can. Hang on 1 second, folks. Okay, Stephen, go ahead.
Yes, I think it's been answered at. I was wondering where we would map the knowledge units on the website, but it sounds like it's not ready to be mapped at this time, but it will be soon, from what Anisha said. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct. So when I get to the next slide, you'll see I'll basically say to apply, all you would need to do is just contact that alias that I provided and say, hey, I'm ready to get started, and then we will provide you with access to the system. I believe I also included in the documents how to get a user account if you don't have one, and that'll actually get you started with getting into the system as well. So you can actually go in there now. If you're new, you can actually go in there now and start your criteria. You just wouldn't be able to actually map as of now. You can start your criteria. You can even enter some of your courses. We're just testing the last portion of the site to make sure all the bugs are out. And then, like I said, I expect that to be released within the next week, no later than 2 weeks from now.
Okay. Yes, I've already been putting information in, but I couldn't see where you could map the knowledge.
Okay, if you actually go in there now, you probably will actually see a little more than you saw before. You probably will see now where you can actually start entering your courses. So if you would like to get started with that, you can definitely start with that. That's definitely turned on now also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. If you would, I don't know, what do you all see on your screen? I'm seeing.
So we're on the how to apply screen. If you'd like, would you like to go back to the previous slide with were you done with that slide?
There are other people that have questions. Do you want me to unmute them?
Yes, absolutely. And then I think there's actually a slide that says, do you have questions?
David Hall, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I wasn't quite clear on if we're already certified. Do we have to apply by the end of March, or was that just an example? Or do we have until December to reapply?
Did we lose Denisha? I think we lost her.
maybe
Can I
we can...
Dave, this is Casey. Can you go to the previous slide, please, Susan? Did you get I guess it wasn't it. It was the one, I don't know which slide.
After this.
That one. Perfect. So, schedule has been provided to institution point of contacts. Dave, are you the POC for Montgomery?
Yes, I am.
Did you get an email with your schedule when you're supposed to submit?
No, I haven't seen that.
Can I interject? I believe
Go ahead, yeah.
I believe Montgomery has a July, August period. They're not in the first cycle, but I think they're in the second cycle of that schedule, which is about mid-year, as I recall.
Okay, maybe they can resend me that schedule then.
Yeah, I'll check into it and send it to you, Dave.
Okay, thanks, Fred.
Bob Sherman, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm at Sinclair College, and we were designated in 2012 as a CAE2I. And earlier, it was my understanding that we were required to designate on the schedule provided, and for my institution, that would be by September 30. This language on the slide says encourage, which is much softer, and it's also my understanding that in the National Defense Authorization Act, there was language that said these designations are still usable, or institutions can still refer to themselves as CAE2Is until June of 2015. Remember, of course, the original designations were for a 5-year period, which means my designation ought to have expired in 2017, pushed forward to 2014, which didn't make me very happy. So I guess the question is, do I really have to redesignate by September 2014, or do I have to June of 2015?
This is Vera. I don't believe anybody has the answer. Firm answer as to that question. I know I have seen that piece of legislation, but no, it isn't firm yet, and I think we will ask Denisha, and maybe she can directly send you an email if you send us your email address.
Vera, I've already sent an email to the Ask CAEIAE@nsa.gov. I sent that several weeks ago and have had no response.
Okay, well, we are going to make sure that you do get response. Sorry.
Sue, can you unmute Denisha, please? Denisha Jackson, she's muted. She's perhaps...
I don't know why. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I could hear everything, and I was trying to talk.
Okay, now you're back. So you want to weigh in on that one?
So I was saying that we're still asking everyone to try to stick with the schedule, even though that if you have until that date. And let me just say, prior to that legislation going through, you would have had till 2017. So whoever pushed for this legislation kind of made it bad for everyone, because now we have that drop dead date of 2015. So we've been asking everyone to still try to stick to that schedule that we provided, because we still have to get the 181 through by June 2015. So if you don't turn it into June 2015 and we don't review it, by that date, then according to that legislation, you're expired. So we're going to send out an email next week. We weren't allowed to speak on it to answer those questions. I heard you say that you didn't get a response. We weren't allowed to answer those questions until we heard from some of our lawyers, and actually we're having a meeting about that right now. I'm supposed to be there, but we're strongly encouraging everyone to stick to the schedule we provided. Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess it did, but it certainly seems a bit vague, and the timeline is so rushed. Recertifying by September 2014 is difficult. I would say institutions that were recently designated, 2012 or 2013, certainly ought to have more time to redesignate.
Now that that's legislation, that's out of our control. We definitely, you would have still had your CAE designation until that 2017 date, until that legislation was pushed forward, which was not done by us. So we had to get everyone done by 2015 now. If you need more time, June 30th, 2015. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So if you need more time, you can definitely send us an email about this, but now that it's basically passed, there's not much that we can do.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mark Kozlowski, you have a question?
Yeah, hi. This is Mark Kozlowski with Waukesha County Technical College in Wisconsin. I'm going to be applying for a new CAE designation probably soon, within the year. The question was regarding the center and the website. Are there any hard criteria or any criteria listed? I skimmed the documentation, but I didn't see anything, and I'm wondering if there might be some examples of that.
You mean for the criteria that says you need to have a center in place?
Yes.
Yeah, so, we're just, like I was saying, we're just looking for, even if it's just a website where you provide information about your program, where you're providing up-to-date IA news, where you're providing links to critical libraries or anything like that that your students can use. That's what we mean by center. We're looking for your presence as a CAE institution on the web or inside your facility. It doesn't necessarily have to be an actual physical center.
I mean, the college itself has a website that has pretty much all of those things, but it doesn't have to be something that's geared directly toward.
We're looking for something that's dynamic. We're looking for something that's changing with any IA news that's coming out. We're looking for something that's going to constantly have any competitions that your students can possibly partake in. It's something that's helping with their student development as well. And usually we don't see those things in the normal college website because a lot of times as a program does not have control over those. So I've seen
based on policy, the schools sometimes have a problem with the other areas within the school to create a website. So it's only one like that I've seen.
I'll say this: I've seen other schools do this just simply by setting up a blog where one of your student clubs run. You see what I'm going
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
Yep. So, and if you do it that way, then you're also covering some of those other requirements where your students are participating in clubs and competitions and that type of thing. So you can kind of knock some of these out, a couple of these things under different criteria in one thing. It's just if you think about it and attack it that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Charlie, Chaos?
Oh, hi. Yeah, Charlie Chaos from Capital College.
Hi, Charlie.
I was wondering first if anybody was going to answer questions that we put in the chat. I've been putting stuff in there rather than, asking, but the specific one that I was looking at, it may be answered later on with the slides, where we have minimum and maximum point values assessed by the criteria. I'm talking about the program criteria.
Yes.
It doesn't really explain how to allocate the points. And I had sent in a couple of emails to the Ask before, even when Mr. Crawford was still there, and didn't really get any clarification. Like, it says you have to have shared curriculum, as a for instance. There are specific things there, up to 5 points, 3 points required. But it doesn't, how do we find out, like, is one document worth 1 point? Can one big document be worth 3? I mean, there's no gradient criteria that we can use to answer the questions on the application so that we come up to, I think it was 173 points or something like that. And the second question was, you indicated when you were going through the slides that there was a new requirement, the last one on the list, I think, and I didn't do a screen capture, so I don't have the slide in front of me.
Yeah.
But I looked at the guidance documents, and I don't see that on either of the 2014 PDFs that I've been provided so far.
So let me address the first one, your first question first. The guidance in regards to points is basically given to our reviewers. If you would like to see that, I can definitely provide that to you. But that is actually provided to the reviewers when they are reviewing it. And usually what happens is if you're not going to pass a section or the reviewers have questions, they're required to first ask you all, put in a request for more information through us, and we reach out to you to say, you're lacking in this section, can you provide more information? If you don't hear anything back from us regarding lacking information, usually you're okay in these sections. So if you would like to have a breakdown, I can definitely provide it. However, that's how it's always been.
Yeah, if I could, because I took the original guidance and created an entire spreadsheet, basically, so that we're asking ourselves as the institution, who's the ISSO? Do we have this appointed? Who are our subject matter experts? And putting them down by name so that we can go in and track your application questions so that we know, okay, we've made this criteria or we didn't make this one. And without having that specificity, it's very difficult for us to say, okay, yeah, we meet this, because I might be assessing it wrong from what a reviewer is going to look at.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to have a problem because, when we mapped the last time at Capitol, we were fortunate we mapped all 6 of the standards at the advanced level. So, I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay, but I'd like to see how we're going to fare before we actually put the application in.
Okay, so that's 2 different things. Mapping, there are no points associated with mapping.
No, absolutely. I understand.
Okay. Yeah, so I can definitely try to find your email. I jotted down your name, and I can get back to you on that. But in regards to your second question, under each requirement for each type, the 2-year, 4-year, if you look at the first bullet, I'm pretty sure under each of those first bullets, it'll say something about student curriculum path and recognition. That's on the requirements guide, under the requirements for each program. I can almost bet my last dollar that it's there.
It might just have been a different wording, and that's why it confused me when I saw it on the slide. It may very well be because there are 8 criteria, Under the new guidance documents, you have 8 criteria. The original one that was put out was 9.
Well, it's different criteria based on the program. But student curriculum path and recognition are both, is listed in that term on both documents. On this slide so that you just saw, and as well as in the requirements document. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going from the 2014, what was this thing actually stated?
Program guidance?
No, 2014 NSA DHS National CAE CD criteria document.
Okay. I don't have that in front of me. Actually, I might right now.
I wasn't looking at the KUs, I was looking at I thought that was the programmatic one as opposed to the KU documents, which are broken down nicely and you can see what everything is.
I can definitely get back to you on the side to address this.
I put my email address in the text chat.
Okay. I can't see a text chat. I'm just a participant like you.
Oh, okay.
I can
Yeah, all right.
definitely reach out, try to find your email that you sent before.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Sue, this is Casey. I don't see anything in the chat either, so I don't know if there's something you can do on your end. There's one more question, looks like.
Zachary?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
So this is Zach Lewis calling. I'm on behalf of Utica College in Utica, New York.
Yes.
And my question to you is, here at Utica College, we have undergraduate and graduate cybersecurity programs. And when we currently map to the CNSS standards, even though I know they don't apply anymore, we have mapped to undergraduate and graduate courses to have a designation as a whole for our undergrad and grad programs. My question to you is, do we have to pursue the CAER in order to have our grad program designated separate from our undergraduate program?
Well, we designate at the institution level. So you would basically you can map for the institution as a whole. Now, if some of those topics or some of those KUs are covered under your graduate level, then you can definitely make that notation in when you map.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, or are you speaking specifically based in terms of the student curriculum tag? Is that what you mean, or in general?
I was asking somebody in general, but I was I was looking at the CAER packet, and we can't specifically meet requirement number 6 yet. We're becoming a research college, if you want to say. So we haven't gotten there yet. So we weren't sure if that would put a roadblock in mapping to our grad classes as well as our undergrad classes, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, you can just specify, because when you do the criteria portion, it's basically free flow, and you can provide any justifications that you like. So if you want to notate which part applies to your graduate level, which part applies to your undergrad, you're more than welcome to, but you'll still receive the designation as an institution as a whole.
Okay. I think that answers.
Okay, and if it doesn't, that just shoot us an email and we can talk more about it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Charlie, really quickly, I grabbed the criteria, and it's number 3, where we're talking about the student curriculum path. So that's the criteria that'll map to that one.
Okay, that was one that I had on there. Okay. Robust and active IA academic program.
And then you'll see where the point values and stuff are, where students are taking the IACD curriculum path. Students have their opportunity. Because we recognize that since this is new, you may not have that path set up yet. So we're just trying to see where are you in, in that process.
Yeah, no, well that was important because we have an undergraduate in information assurance, master's in information assurance, and a doctorate in information assurance. And we have 4 courses that are naturally built into those degrees. When we're going to this institutional certification rather than a curriculum certification, it got a little bit confusing because, yeah, we have all of that, but do we count all of the courses that we have available at the college, or is it just the core courses and not our elective courses? That's where the confusion started to come in with that question.
Okay, well let's talk about it outside, and we'll try to get to the bottom of it for you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Casey, do you see the chat window now?
No. Nope. All I see is just what I'm sending to host, and then I tried host, presenter, and panelists. Looks like we have another question though. Stephen Miller.
I think I already was on, and you answered my question about, yeah.
I think the host has to take the hand down when they're done.
Okay, let me see. I have to, or they have to?
I think they have to,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
So
I think
perhaps there. Go ahead, Sue. Maybe you want to. I was going to suggest you read questions from the chat since you probably can see them and we can't.
All right. One of the questions was the example for a center's website. I think probably answered that one. Is there a listed example of syllabi or common course outlines for the CA2Y?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Susan? I didn't hear you.
Is there a listed example of syllabi or common course outlines for the CA2Y?
There actually, if folks go to www.cyberwatchcenter.org, one of the first links on the main page in the upper left portion of the website says Centers of Academic Excellence for Community Colleges. And there are towards the bottom of that page then that you go to are successful CAE2Y applications. Now I realize we have more than just community college folks on this call, but there are about 10 different application packages from the past 3 years. And in there you get a sample of common course outlines, syllabi, the kinds of things that schools did to meet the criteria. So I would encourage people to go to the CyberWatch website, cyberwatchcenter.org, first link on the left side of the page, Centers of Academic Excellence, and then towards the very bottom, you'll get a list of about, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 successful applications, of which will include common course outlines, et cetera, et cetera.
Also, Sue, if you wouldn't mind advancing a couple of slides to get to the one that says resources. I think this is a good point to jump in and just remind everyone that there are, in addition to the NSA, we have the National CyberWatch Center has resources. Fred's willing to answer questions. CyberWatch West is willing to answer questions, and Cassia, Sue said she'd answer some questions. So this is another good spot to jump into that.
Good. Any other questions from the chat room?
If anyone has maps they use to some of the MATLAB courses, like Security Plus and Certified Ethical Hacking?
Not that I'm aware of, but a casual glance of the core knowledge units, I think there are like 11 of those. Is that right, Denisha? So 11 elements that must be mapped to in the core knowledge units. I think 8 or 9 of those are covered in the Security Plus course. So, next question.
For those that were certified in 2013 and need to redesignate this year, for criteria that goes back a few years, can they just put that in the application again? I think the question is for, if they're just certified in 2013, how recent does their recertification have to be for the information they're using?
Well, we would just expect for you to provide what you have above and beyond what you provided us last year. So you really would just be addressing that student recognition path question and then doing your mapping. Or you'll have to still put all the other things back in there when you'll see when you get into the website that you should be able to just copy forward what you already had. And if you want to add any additional things to that, you can.
So they can't copy forward their previous information. And
yeah, that's what I just said.
Add the new criteria in.
You got it, Susan. So we're hoping, so we set it up so they can copy forward what they had, and then if you have any additional, hopefully, we set up the system, and like I said, we're testing it out, that when you copy forward, you'll have the option to keep it as is, and you can just add additional, or you can start from scratch. But I would assume that they would all just keep that as they had it, since they, that all passed, and they would just add what they don't have, or anything they have above and beyond that they just want to include, and then they would just have to do the matching.
I think that covers the question. There were a few of the questions about being able to reuse previous submission information.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that has any questions that I might have overlooked?
Well, if you'll advance to the next slide, then I would just like to take the opportunity to say, before we start losing anybody, to say that we have planned a few more CAE webcasts so that we can help those of you along in the process and the mapping and addressing the criteria. So, and if you'll advance to the next one, next week sometime, we will send out a follow-up. Well, if you have any questions, of course, you can contact the CAE. But then if you go one more, then I just want to remind everyone that we'll be sending an email with letting you know about our webinar, any links to what we've covered today. If you have questions, please email us so we know what to cover. And we will be your resource to help get you through this process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Casey for a final thing.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thanks to our panelists, Denisha, Portia, Fred, Dr. Sue. Thanks for driving, and we'll be in touch. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you at the next webinar series, which is March 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And 28th.
I'm sorry. I got my months all mixed up. Thank you. February 28th. I had the right day, right? February 28th, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's going to be on national curriculum. Some efforts that are going on, some challenges within that space, and that'll be led by Dr. Margaret Leary from Northern Virginia Community College. So hope to see everybody on February 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and have a good weekend. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Casey.